Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Los Angeles Day of Remembrance at Nishi Betsuin. My name is Hua Lee, and I'm the Programs and Education Manager at Go for Broke National Education Center. On behalf of the committee, it is a great honor to stand before you today as we gather to remember our past, reflect on its lasting impact, and reaffirm our commitment to justice. Each year, we come together to commemorate the signing of Executive Order 9066, a decision that uprooted more than 126,000 Japanese Americans from their homes and placed them in American concentration camps. Day of Remembrance is a time to honor those who endured this injustice, recognize their experiences' intergenerational impact, and ensure that these stories continue to be shared. This year's theme, A Legacy of Courage, Nikkei Women, Persevering Through Incarceration and Beyond, brings forward the often overlooked narratives of Japanese American women. Despite the trauma and hardships of forced removal and incarceration, Nikkei women found ways to organize their communities, care for their families, and rebuild their lives. Many played key roles in resisting injustice, advocating for civil rights, and laying the foundation for the thriving community that we have today. Through my work at Go for Broke, I'm inspired by the Nisei women who stepped forward to serve in the US military during World War II. Beginning in 1943, despite facing discrimination and unjust incarceration of their families, many Nisei women joined the Army Nurse Corps, the Women's Army Corps, and the Military Intelligence Service, where they served as nurses, doctors, and linguists translating critical intelligence for the US war effort. Their stories, only recently uncovered by scholars, highlight not only their patriotism, but also the resilience required to serve a country that had stripped their own families of their rights. At the same time, other Nikkei women resisted incarceration from within the camps. Some, like those in the Tule Lake Stockade, protested their unjust treatment despite harsh retaliation. Others, such as the Minidoka Mother Society, spoke out against the military drafts of their sons while their families remained imprisoned. Their acts of defiance, big and small, remind us that courage took many forms during this time. The strength and perseverance of Nikkei women did not end when the camps closed. Nikkei women have continued to lead, whether in the fight for redress, in preserving our community's history, or in advocating injustice for others. Their stories remind us that resistance comes in many forms and courage is often found in the everyday acts of perseverance. Today, we want to take a moment to remember those we have lost this past year. Individuals whose dedication and leadership shaped our community in profound ways. We also remember others within our community and those who stood in solidarity with us, whose presence continue to inspire our work today. We are also honored to be joined by elected officials who continue to support our community. We are joined by Assemblymember Al Murasuchi and his family. Yes. As well as staff members from Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez's office. In addition, we have Ernie Nishi, the ABC Unified School District Board of Trustees President. Yes. And Steve Gibson from the Pasadena Community College District Board of Trustees. We thank them for being here today and for their commitment to ensuring that the lessons of this history are never forgotten. A special thank you to those who made this program possible. Sam Nakahira for this year's artwork, and Mark Hirai of Elite Graphics for printing our materials. And lastly, I want to take a moment to thank the Los Angeles DOR Committee, a coalition of organizations dedicated to preserving our history and ensuring that these lessons remain relevant today. Their work makes this gathering possible, and I encourage everyone to support their ongoing efforts. Okay. Let us now begin with the camp roll call, which will be recited by our very best Matthew and Elizabeth. Thank you for being here today, for remembering with us, for recommitting with us, and for carrying this legacy forward.
Thank you all. Each year, we are reminded of the need to honor the enduring legacies and stories of those who experienced America's concentration camps during World War II.
In our camp roll call, we honor those of Japanese ancestry, both citizen and non-citizen, who were directly impacted by Executive Order 9066 and forcibly removed from the west coast of the United States and taken to one of 10 War Relocation Authority concentration camps, or 30 Department of Justice and INS camps.
We now invite the representatives from local Girl Scout troops and volunteers to begin the procession of camp banners. This year, the Scouts will be accompanied by a survivor or descendant of the camp they stand by, who know firsthand the importance of remembering what happened and ensuring that it never happens again.
The War Relocation Authority concentration camps. Amachi, Colorado, 7,318 people, represented by Reiko Rikumaru Nimura.
Gila River, Arizona, 13,348 people, represented by Carrie Morita, a descendant of Gila River survivors.
Heart Mountain, Wyoming, 10,767, represented by Hal Kamey.
Jerome, Arkansas, 8,497 people, represented by Richard Murakami.
Manzanar, California, 10,046, represented by Pat Sakamoto.
Minidoka, Idaho, 9,397 people, represented by Wendy Nagatani.
Poston, Arizona, 17,814, represented by Steve Nagano.
Rower, Arkansas, 8,475 people, represented by June Hibino.
Topaz, Utah, 8,130, represented by Willie Ito.
Tule Lake, California, 18,789 people, represented by Kyoko Nancy Oda.
The 100th Infantry Battalion, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and the Military Intelligence Service, represented by Sachi Murase.
Department of Justice Camp, Crystal City, Texas, represented by Elsa Kudo.
Tuna Canyon Detention Station, Los Angeles, California, represented by Kei Oda. And now the other Department of Justice camps, citizen isolation centers, and the Gripsum exchange ship, 5,800.
Alexandria, Fort Livingston, Louisiana, Angel Island, California, Bismarck, Fort Lincoln, North Dakota, Crystal City, Texas, East Boston, Massachusetts.
Ellis Island, New York, Florence, Arizona, Fort Meade, Maryland, Fort Richardson, Alaska, Fort Sam Houston, Texas.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Fort Stanton, New Mexico, Honolulu, Hawaii, Kalaheo, Hawaii, Kennedy, Texas.
Kilauea, Hawaii, Kuski, Idaho, Lordsburg, New Mexico, McCoy, Wisconsin, Missoula, Montana.
Montreat Assembly Inn, North Carolina, Old Raton Ranch, New Mexico, Sand Island, Hawaii, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Seabrook, New Jersey.
Seagoville, Texas, Sharp Peak, California, Stringtown, Oklahoma, Tullahoma, Tennessee, Tuna Canyon, California.
Citizen Isolation Centers, Loop, Arizona, Moab, Utah.
If you're able, please stand now as we take a moment to honor all who were forcibly removed and lived in America's concentration camps, as well as those Japanese Americans who lived outside of the military zones and suffered from the racism of hatred heightened by the executive order. We also pay tribute to the thousands of Japanese Latin Americans and German and Italian Americans who were incarcerated by the U.S. government.
And we pay respects to all of those who are no longer with us, family members, friends, activists, and leaders, those who left behind a tremendous legacy, who told the stories of the Japanese American experience, of the camps, of rebuilding lives and communities, of fighting for justice. If you are able, please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated.
A special thank you to our scouts and volunteers. Thank you also to the family and friends of the survivors here today. All right, we would now like to hear from several speakers who will share their experiences and reflect on the words of women leaders who came before. To introduce our speakers and is our panel moderator is Kelsey Iino. Dr. Kelsey Iino has dedicated her professional career to the community college system. She is an elected Board of Trustee member of the Los Angeles Community College District, president of her faculty union, and has worked over 17 years as a counselor at El Camino College. Kelsey has served multiple organizations and currently as a board member of Astronaut Ellison S. Onizuka Memorial Committee, the El Camino College Foundation, and the Little Tokyo Service Center. Please welcome Kelsey Iino.
Good afternoon, everyone. So you're in for a treat. There's going to be some short videos, some commentary. I would like to introduce my panel guests. I have Traci Kato-Kiriyama, Yesenia Cardenas, Karin Magana, Sarah Omura, and Nobuko Miyamoto. If we can get them over. So what you're going to see today is a series of short clips and then some just commentary from these amazing women here on the panel today. The first clip is from Tetsu Saito.
ローサンゼルス市内セブンナイン店ルースホテルを経営しておりました。ホテルは2階建て37のルームを当時のお金にしまして$6000のリースを長期契約をして経営しておりました。戦争が始まりまして強制的日本人収容所に入ることになりました。それで全てを片付けなくちゃなりませんのでリースは白人が$300で買いに来ました。それを仕方なしに手放しました。投げ込んでちょうど豚と同じようにされました。それで量も足りません。これで生きていかれるかねと思って親としては育つ子供に対して食事が足りないことは非常に悲しいことです。これで生きていかれるかと思いました。さて、戦争も終わりまして、収容所の管理人が来まして、キャンプから出ろっていうことを言いました。どこへ出るんですかって言いました。我々は何もありません。どこへ行くところもありません。またその考えもありません。我々はここにいましょうって言いました。日系人の過去は金銭では解決できないものであります。私は本当に苦労が多かったのですが、私たちの本当の苦労と経験とに対するアメリカ政府は償わなきゃならないと思います。
So that clip was for me to kind of respond a little bit to, and I just got back from Washington, D.C. a couple of days ago, lobbying at the federal government with the Department of Education, a lot of our Congress members and senators, and I think this is just a very scary reminder of what is potentially happening to our community today with the ICE raids and all of those things, folks being rounded up, so scared, and we don't know what's going to happen to them and things like that. So I think just as a community, all of us here are doing a lot right now to be informed as best we can, and to look to protect each other. Hopefully all of us here know we never want something like this to happen again, and so we will band together. I think a lot of the conversation that we're going to have today is based off of our experiences. I did have a grandmother who owned a farm, and thankfully, because of the Mennonites, they were able to be evacuated but return home to their farmland, and they were able to take in a lot of other folks that were impacted with no places to go and homes. I also had a grandfather. My grandmother was pregnant, and they didn't know what was going to happen in these camps, the concentration camps, and so they were able to also relocate to the East Coast. But we know now, with these ICE raids and our undocumented community, that we really need to make sure we are well informed to protect them. And so I think I don't know if anyone else wanted to add to the fear or anything like that, but we do have a series of videos. Also, in your programs, there's bios of all of the wonderful, amazing women on this panel today. And so I encourage you to read up on them and support them, and as we navigate these very treacherous times.
My name is Esther Arakaki Taira, and I'm going to be sharing my mom's story. My mom was always the senior citizen, and so when the hero part comes in is, I did not know the young Nancy Arakaki. And when I found out what she was like and what she went through, it was like, again, would I be able to do that? And I don't think so. I think the Nisseis had a special fiber or cord of resiliency and strength that I grew to really appreciate, but only after I found her story. When I found out all the little things that happened, and I had to shake my head and say, how did she do it? How did she raise all three of us and not burden us with the stigma, the guilt, just the god awfulness of the whole camp experience? My admiration just blossomed after the fact.
So now the first question is to Sarah. As a high school senior, how does Esther Taira's expression of her mom speak to you and your understanding of the camp experience?
Well, when I first watched the video, the themes that stood out to me were sacrificial love and kodomo no tameni. So sacrificial love, I think there's a kind of beauty in being able to give so much of yourself to someone, or especially your kids, and not expect anything. You solely want to do it for the betterment of them. And then kodomo no tameni is a Japanese phrase which means for the sake of the children. And I believe that Miss Tara's mother really exemplifies this idea, and her self-sacrifice was something which was very heavy. So I think not only her, but so many of the mothers in camp made sacrifices to make sure that their children were unburdened with all of the hate and everything that was happening in camp. And so I think that they provided a sense of normalcy in a time and place when everything was so different from the norm. And I think that's quite remarkable. So I know that the elders in camp had a very different experience compared to the adolescents. And so because they were able to sacrifice so much for them and give them a great childhood, I think that they were really strong, and the mothers, which were present everywhere, were just so impactful, and they really changed the lives of their children in the camp. And then as a senior in high school right now, I was thinking about how I would do in camp and what experiences I would not be able to have. And I think that it's very hard to imagine that. And it must have been even harder for the people actually in camp to imagine why, as an innocent young American citizen, they would be forced somewhere so horrible. And then I just wanted to end by saying that the sacrifices which thousands of mothers shouldered kept countless more children sheltered from the wrongdoing shoved upon them by their own government.
Thank you. Next, we have a video on Mary Yamada.
I left my home in Los Angeles, and I didn't go back until the war. And at that time, I volunteered. I thought I would be joining our hospital unit. They eventually went to the UK. I just took it for granted that I would be a part of that unit. And lo and behold, I get all these letters now telling me that there was no, that they were not accepting Japanese nurses and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know that. I was a commissioned officer. I was supposed to be giving orders to the staff, the enlisted personnel. And, but mine was mostly just nursing, taking care of the patients, the medications, helping the doctor. And when we had inspection, I forgot if they call it general inspection, they talk about the inspectors would come with white gloves and they would rub their fingers over the windows and windowsills, so forth and so forth. So I got down on my hands and knees in the shower stall to make sure that our showers are clean. I don't know if that was part of what we were supposed to be doing, but then that was my ward and they were my people, you see.
So how do you feel about the education of people? Because there's a lot of people that don't know, you know, what you've been through.
Few people really know about what's happening in the world outside their own little world. I think the Japanese Americans have been very fortunate in being Japanese and Americans. I think they have the best of both cultures. And I think many of us who had parents who lived to a good old age were very lucky to have had that kind of family life. I think my mother tried to help me in many ways, although she had her own problems. And as I said, we didn't do much talking. But we didn't have to talk. We just kind of felt things between us. And that was enough.
Check, check. Okay. So the next question is for Yesenia. What are your initial thoughts and feelings when Mary Yamada explained that she was initially rejected from the Cadet Nursing Corps and denied work as a nurse due to her race?
Thank you. That's such a great question. Well, first, I want to mention that I'm in the military. I'm a woman of color. And also, I'm a torchbearer for the Go for Broke National Education Center. I've learned a lot about the Nisei veterans. I learned a lot about the history, but hearing it is still disturbing. When I think about my own experience, what is currently happening in today's society, it kind of reminds me that the past was not that long ago. There's still people that are being targeted because of their identities. And I think one thing that I want to leave off with is one of my initial reactions was what Mary Yamada said. We are the best of both cultures. I can imagine her seeing that she was rejected from joining the Corps because of her Japanese nationality or her ancestry, and thinking of her, or saying to herself, I'm proud of who I am. You may not want me, but I'm here. I'm not leaving, and I'm not giving up. And that's why I'm here, and I hope that you all don't give up either. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have Nobuko Miyamoto, who is going to speak a little bit about one of the films that she has that we will display next.
I was 2 years old when I became the enemy, and we were moved to Santa Anita Racetrack. And after several months there, my father volunteered to harvest sugar beets in Glasgow, Montana. And so we left camp as they were sending people into permanent camps. We were sent to Glasgow, Montana with about 200 or 300 men. And so my mother and I were the only two women or females of all these people that were picking beets. And I really saw camp from the view of my mother, who had stories, who had anger, and felt so helpless. But she also wanted to protect me. And just seeing these videos is very touching, because people faced it in many different ways. I'm a songwriter, and I want to present a story through video and music. And they want to disappear us, but we're still here. They want to erase us from here, but we're still here. And we have become storytellers, we have become poets, we have become filmmakers, we have written books to tell and keep these stories alive. Also, we are gathering people like this every year to remember. So it's very important what we're doing now, because they still want to disappear us, but we're not disappearing. So in this video and this song, there's just one phrase that I want you to, that comes from really a connection with a good friend of mine, Reiko Sato, who was also a dancer. And Reiko, when I was a teenager, like 16, 17, we worked in a film together, and she was the first person who talked about camp. And she told me that her father was a minister at Zenshuji, right across from here. And the day after Pearl Harbor, they came and took her father away. And she never saw him again. Then she and her mother were put in Gila River. And in Gila River, of all places, she had a dance class and a dance teacher. Her name was Yuriko. And Yuriko left camp. She taught ballet class, and maybe some people will remember her, but she taught ballet class. Her last name was Amamiya, Yuriko Amamiya. But when she left camp, she went to New York, and she studied modern dance with Martha Graham. And she worked as a seamstress. That's how she made money. But she became one of the premier dancers for Martha Graham, and then she only had one name, Yuriko. And so that piece of history is part of my history, because when I got a show in New York called Flower Drum Song, we were all in this show together, and afterwards I stayed in her house. She let me live in her house, and afterwards we would go and hang out, and staying up to 2 and 3 in the morning. And her husband, Yuriko's husband, was named Charlie Kikuchi. And Charlie Kikuchi had written a diary because he had collected, he was a social worker, and he had a job collecting the stories of people in different camps. And he was complaining because he had no way of getting this book published. So I feel like this film, this little film that it did finally get published. It got published because of the movement, because we fought to have a voice in the late 60s and the 70s, and we have a voice now. So this piece is called Gaman. And Gaman is one of the reasons why we have a voice right now, because our ancestors passed down a tradition, a teaching to us. And I think that's what the strength of these women and the other women that you're going to hear came from, a kind of discipline, a kind of teaching from our people that kept them strong. So today, they also want to disappear us. They want to erase us. But my message to you is you're all here. I'm here. And we're not disappearing. I was born in a place I didn't belong. At 2, I became the enemy, a would-be spy, a threat to U.S. internal security. Soon, I was removed with 120,000 others who looked like me to a place grown-ups called camp. But it was no summer camp. 120,000 stories buried in the sand. 120,000 stories. 120,000 stories buried in my skin. 120,000 stories. Pacing the barbed wire, measuring my life. You're all out there, and I'm here inside. Why did you put me here? Will I be here all my life? They're planting flowers, using up their time, counting the hours. Some are losing their minds. How long will you keep them here? Will we be here all our lives? Walking to mess hall, I hold Obachan's hand. Passing rows of barracks, we fight the wind and the sand. Why do they hate us so, Grandma? Will we be here all our lives? And my Bachan said, Gaman, you be strong. Motto gaman shiteko ne. Dance class, graduations, make life go on. Pretending things are normal as the war rages on. When will it ever stop? Will we be here all our lives. We enlist, we swear allegiance. They never found a spy. The bravest of battalions, 800 soldiers died. Now did they prove their loyalty? And will we be repaid? Stories unfolding, hidden feelings burst like flame. We tried so hard to forget, but now we relive the pain. So no one can say again, will we be here all? Manzanar, Poston, Roar, Tule Lake. Will we be here all? Minidoka, Hamachi, Gila River, Heart Mountain. Will we be here all? Jerome, Topaz, Crystal City, Fort Sills. Will we be here all? Our lives. Gaman, Gaman, be strong. Motto gaman shite iko ne. $120,000 stories buried in the sand, 120,000 stories. 120,000 stories buried in my skin, 120,000 stories. Never again.
Wow, so powerful. Thank you so much for your art and your creativity and your words. I think we all need to take care of ourselves in wellness, and through music and arts, it's a really good way, and this was a wonderful piece for us to carry with us as we do this work, so thank you. The next video is the Elsa Kudo video, and I'd also like to acknowledge that the Kudo family is here, so they're in the audience.
These are some of my vivid memories as a 7-year-old. We lived a happy and prosperous life in Peru, South America. However, in January of '44, my father was suddenly taken from us by armed police. He had not committed any crime nor broken any laws, and yet the only explanation given was, "We are sorry. but this is by the order of the United States. We did not know where he was taken to or if he was dead or alive. Because of the trauma, mother was not able to nurse this baby, so she stuffed much of the bags with canned milk. Sadly, all foodstuffs were thrown overboard. No matter how she pleaded and gestured, the armed guards would not understand that she wanted milk for her child. When she offered her breast to the crying baby, only blood came. Upon reaching the U.S., we were processed by the immigration authorities. We were stripped naked, made to shower en masse, and sprayed with DDT from head to toe. We arrived at Crystal City internment camp in Texas shortly after.
As a woman and a mother, I am inspired by my mother's strength and the values she instilled in me. I'm very thankful that she published the English version of my grandfather's book, Adios to Tears, which enabled her siblings and descendants like us to read her father's story. It made my mother so happy to learn that many professors use the book in their curriculum, spreading the story to new generations of students. My hope is that the more we learn about the plight of others, we have more compassion as we endeavor to prevent such injustices today.
I have always been in awe that my grandmother didn't carry any resentment following the war. I think it would have been very easy to stay bitter and withdraw, but instead she really dove right into advocacy for her community throughout her adult life. Not only did she testify in 1981 to urge the government to provide redress for JLAs, she also served as a board member under the Civil Liberties Public Education Fund under the Clinton administration, which advocated for both Japanese Latin American and Japanese American groups. I continue to be inspired to this day by her activism.
I truly appreciate the sacrifice and contributions of JLA women like my mother and both grandmothers in the States, as well as those in Japan and Latin America who kept their families together and did what they could to prevent what happened to them from happening to others.
So this question goes to Karen. Talk about what most resonates you about the Kudo family story and how these Japanese Latin Americans and your own PhD research overlap.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here. Thank you for the questions. For reference, I'm currently a fifth-year PhD candidate at UCLA, and my research focuses on family separation and the impact that it has on Central American immigrant families. So as I reflect on the story of the Kudo family and the similarities with the current situation of immigrant families today, what strikes me the most is the ongoing legacy of state violence against immigrant families. How the US government has repeatedly justified forced separation, displacement, and incarceration in the name of national security. The Kudo family was forcibly removed from their home in Peru, incarcerated in a US concentration camp, and stripped of their legal rights. And unfortunately, that story is not just a historical tragedy. It is a pattern that continues today. Immigrant families today are experiencing the same state-sanctioned violence in the form of deportations, incarceration, and family separations, showing us that history does not stay in the past, right? Instead, it repeats itself, shifting its target, but preserving the same systems of oppression. And I feel that this painful cycle serves as a reminder for all of us that unless we confront and challenge these injustices, they're gonna continue to shape the lives of marginalized immigrant communities for generations to come. As a PhD student, my research focuses on how family separation impacts Central American families, specifically emotional well-being, long-term stability, and family structures. And the story of the Kudo family echoes a lot of the trauma that I see in Central American immigrant families that have experienced family separation. Just like Central American immigrant families today, the Kudo family was dehumanized, criminalized, and stripped of legal protections, leaving them in a constant state of fear, state of vulnerability. And just like the experiences of Central American immigrant families today, the forced separation, incarceration, and displacement that the Kuda families suffer from was not just a temporary disruption in their lives. It was a life-shaping experience with many intergenerational consequences. And that's what we're seeing today, unfortunately.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Our final video is the Sue Embry.
Mr. Chairman and Honorable Commissioners, my name is Sue Kunitomi Embry. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I was evacuated from Los Angeles on May 9, 1942, along with my widowed mother and 6 brothers and sisters. We were sent to the Manzanar concentration camp, where my brother Hideo was one of the 1,000 volunteers. The period I spent in Manzanar was the most traumatic experience of my life. It has influenced my perspective as well as my continuing efforts to educate, persuade, and encourage others of my generation to speak out about the unspeakable crime. In December 1969, student activists looking for an issue for the Asian American community sponsored a pilgrimage to Manzanar. The bronze plaque cemented into the original stone sentry house, which guarded the Manzanar campsite entrance 39 years ago, reads as follows. In the early part of World War II, 110,000 persons of Japanese ancestry were interned in relocation centers by Executive Order Number 9066, issued on February 19, 1942. Manzanar, the first of 10 such concentration camps, was bounded by barbed wire and guard towers, confining 10,000 persons, the majority being American citizens. May the injustices and humiliation suffered here as a result of hysteria, racism, and economic exploitation never emerge again. California Registered Historical Landmark number 850, plaque placed by the State Department of Parks and Recreation in cooperation with the Manzanar Committee and the Japanese American Citizens League, April 14, 1973. For a majority of the people, participating in the pilgrimage has been a way for them to confront the past and to strengthen a sense of community. The Manzanar Committee believes that the resettlement period for Japanese Americans has never really ended. The formation of this commission on wartime relocation and internment of civilians is a historic event. The investigation that this commission conducts must surely address the serious issues that the Japanese American experience presents to the American people. The violation of human rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution, the stripping of our human dignity, and the destruction of our community. If we do not all stand in support of the Bill of Rights, can we honestly say that it will not happen again? We believe that our educational outreach encompassing the past decade was instrumental in bringing about this movement for redress reparations at this point in time. Our committee has been in existence since 1971. While we acknowledge the importance of this commission, we expect to be here long after the commission has been dissolved and its report filed away in the archives. Finally, we request that this written testimony be made part of your commission records and our recommendations be incorporated as part of the commission's report to Congress. We believe, 1, that a grievous wrong has been committed by the United States government against its citizens and persons of Japanese ancestry during World War II. 2, that a simple apology of wrongdoing is not enough. 3, the 1948 Evacuation Claims Act was not reparations. Number 4, meaningful, direct, and monetary compensation to individuals or their heirs for loss of civil rights, psychological damage, and the destruction of a community is the only tangible remedy our community can accept. Thank you.
So this question goes to Tracy. I know these stories inspire your artistic work, which brings so many different which brings so many different folks together both locally and across the country. What are you currently working on now during these critical times?
Thank you, Kelsey. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So I appreciate the question. Currently I'm continuing to work on a piece related to those commission hearings through which we just got to see Sue Embry. It's a play called Tales of Clamor that was developed with NCRR. And we are doing, we're going to be going through a multi-year residency in Chicago to also recognize the testimonies that were done there and to incorporate that and work with local Chicago actors. I want to continue, I want to mention a space here in Little Tokyo through the Tuesday Night Project, our Tuesday Night Cafe series, which I really do invite all of you out to. And as much as I want to talk about my projects, I want to think about some of the words that we heard. I was thinking about Sue talking about the destruction of community and the stripping of human dignity, and thinking about Nobuko's words, will we be here all our lives? I think about the spirits like left in camp. I think about the spirits left in detention centers and prisons and in the ashes of war. And so maybe the only reason why I would want to talk about some of the work that we do as artists to bring people together is to remember why we need to just face and confront not just the past, but confront our present. And we have these gatherings, Day of Remembrance, to think about not just how we need to remember, right, the past in order to make sure that these things never happen again. We have to also recognize that these things are happening again. They have been happening. They've never ceased to happen. And so how do we each, and I'm thinking about this for myself, how do I leave this chair, this space today with kind of like a renewed sense of commitment to confronting the present? And I'm so grateful to be able to do that with community. I couldn't do that without community. I could not do that without Nobuko. I could not do that without NCRR and Nikkei Progressives, you know what I mean? I could not do that without community. It's very difficult. I've been pushing myself the past couple of weeks to just be very honest about sort of where I'm sitting. And it's really hard for me to even just sit here today. There have been so many losses, yeah? And so many deaths, and I want to say the names of Gan Matsuda, I want to say the names of Jim Matsuoka and Ellen Nishio and Martha Nakagawa and Amy Uematsu, and just in the month of January, Mark Izu and Mario Reyes and Sequoia Olivia Mercier. And my uncle, who is literally in a hospice bed right now, and in his last probably days or hours. My uncle, who was my father's best friend, they met in Tule Lake. They were family members of resistors, you know? And so I think about Sue Embry, I think about her poem that you can look up about the poem that she wrote about her uncle. And, you know, there's a picture of her at Manzanar. It was taken by Gan. We're part of this web, right, of belonging to each other. And so I'm responsible to you. We're responsible to each other, you know what I mean? And so I want to think about that. I want to think about what is my responsibility to other, and there is no other, there's no us and other, right? There really isn't. And I hope that some of you who are interested will join us. We are working in many different areas in Nikkei Progressives and in our art. I'd love to talk to you more. I have a very nascent project about disposability, connection versus disposability, and I think that's where I would want to end, just kind of bringing us back to these words from Sue, right? And like the fire she had. I'll share one more anecdote. I grew up in a household with Georgian Kiriyama, who started the Japanese American Historical Society of Southern California. I grew up as a child in a house where all the meetings were at our house. My mom made all the food. And Sue Embry would come over as president of the Historical Society. I grew up hearing her voice, and as she got older, the way it got raspier and raspier. But she always had that fierceness, that fire. And so I can either get lost in these deaths, or I can just remember that, like, we're here for a reason, right? And so I must keep fighting, right? I must keep creating and co-creating and listening and being here together. So thank you.
No,
for this
thank you.
opportunity.
Yeah, huge. We do have about 5 to 10 more minutes up here together with the space and time, and I think it's a really good. We have teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s plus, and I think just having us all here together, it's just really powerful. You see the work that we've created, and the work that we're going to be creating, and the work that we're all doing together, and so. It's really good to have all these powerful women to go along with the theme for today, the legacy of courage. I think all of us are rooted and fueled by our ancestors, and that's why we do the work and the advocacy, and we create hope and community together because of where we've come from. There's a lot of value, pride, and just strength. I think this morning, this scares me so much to do all this, but I looked at my grandparents' pictures and I was like, I'm doing this for you, right? And this is the easy work, right? Everything that they have gone through, like we saw here, they were treated like pigs. They were treated like cattle, right? Lost everything, had to rebuild, start from new, and look like the enemy. And for us to be up here today, generations later, to fight and advocate for those that don't have voices, this is why we're here, and this is why we do the work. So I think just if anyone has anything to add about what gives you hope, or how best can we take care of each other during this time, because I think we really need to lean in to support each other. And I don't know, or if anyone just has a comment on the videos, or just being here today and your feelings, just anything. I think it's really powerful, and I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you. Well, one thing that just through hearing everyone and listening to all the stories, I started just writing some things down, and I just want to share with you all. So we're here to retell these stories because this is one of the ways that we continue the fight and our struggle to have our country, to have people recognize our rights and our humanity. Just by being here, it's an act of courage. It's an act of defiance to be in community and to tell our truths and our stories. So thank you for having me, and thank you for being here.
Anyone else want to comment? Please. Nobuko, I think we are.
The fact that we're here together. That we need to be here. That we will be here. This is nothing new, like you said. This is a history repeating itself from, and we have the strength, we have the resilience, and we have the wisdom to get through this. And also, I think it's really important, the connection of generations right now. You have here some of the great organizers who have gone through from the very beginning when voice and presence was so necessary. And we have the young people, you know, who come up here and carry the flag. And your children and your children's children. We have to think that way because it may not get better easily or soon. I never thought I'd see this day, actually. I thought we would keep making progress. So we have a good foothold here. We need to keep building community. We need to keep building knowledge. We need to share amongst each other to create, and we need to share across cultures. Because together, we are the majority. We are the majority in the world, and we'll be the majority in this country. So coming together across cultures is really important, and the work that you're doing to do that is critical right now. So I just want to thank you all for being here and being here for so many years, again and again. Like Tracy, I could not have sustained through these 50 years that I have been an activist if it wasn't for this community, which just kept feeding me and kept holding me and kept telling me and kept guiding me. And that's what you young people have to do. Keep listening. Keep listening, and it'll guide you what to do. In whatever field that you are in, if you're a scholar, if you're an artist, if you're a poet, if you're a teacher, whatever, you'll know what to do. And we'll still be here. We will be here. We've been through a lot more. We've been through, and they can tell us their story. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this year after year after year. It's so important. It's so important. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that's our time for today. I just, again, want to thank this amazing panel for all of your contributions here on the stage and in life. I know it's heavy, but together we're doing it. And please, take the time to get to know us after, and we want to get to know you, and please take care of yourself, offer yourself grace, and do the scary things that make you a little sweaty at times, and be bold and brave, because we're going to need everyone during this time. But being here with all of you gives me hope, and we will persevere. So thank you. So that concludes this section, and then the next part, I would like to call to stage Sharon Oda and Richard Katsuda, who are going to be honoring Nikkei women leaders. A big applause for the panel. Oh, you're...
It's an honor to stand before you today as we remember, reflect, and celebrate the unwavering spirit of Nikkei women, our grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters and daughters who endured unimaginable hardship yet emerged as pillars of strength, resiliency, and community. During World War II, the forced removal and incarceration of Japanese Americans was a painful chapter in our history. Families were torn from their homes, livelihoods stripped away, and futures placed on hold. And yet, even behind barbed wire, in the face of injustice, Nikkei women held their families together. They turned barren barracks into homes, sewed scraps into clothing, planted gardens in the dust, and found ways to nourish both body and spirit. They organized schools, published newspapers, and advocated for dignity where there was none to be given.
But their resilience did not end when the camps closed. With nothing but determination, many started over, working tirelessly to rebuild lives, businesses, and neighborhoods. They carried the weight of the past while forging a future, instilling in the next generations the values of perseverance, hard work, and community.
Today, we honor these women not only for surviving, but for thriving, for taking the pain of their incarceration and transforming it into action. Some took their fight to the legal system, challenging the injustice of wartime incarceration through the courts and paving the way for civil rights victories that extend beyond our community. Others dedicated their life to documenting and preserving the stories of those who suffered, ensuring that the voices of those who came before us are not lost to time and are never forgotten.
Nikkei women played a crucial role in building institutions that serve our community today. Some helped establish cultural and historical centers, creating spaces where our heritage is preserved and passed down. Others spearheaded major philanthropic and leadership initiatives, securing funding and support for community programs, healthcare, and education around the camps. In the arts, they used their voices to share the Japanese American experience through theater, poetry, literature, and film, capturing both the pain of the past and hope for the future. In sports, they broke barriers in coaching and leadership, inspiring young athletes to challenge limitations and redefine representation.
They have stood at the forefront of advocacy, working to ensure that what happened to our Japanese American community during World War II never happens to another community. From leading redress movements to testifying before Congress, they played a pivotal role in securing justice and reparations, proving that resilience is not just about survival, but about speaking truth to power. We gather today to honor these women, not only for surviving, but taking the pain of incarceration and transforming it into action. And going forward, we now have a new generation carrying their legacy forward. Today, they're fighting for civil rights, preserving our history, and ensuring that the injustices they endured are never forgotten. Today, we have educators and artists who ensure our stories are told. Today, we have leaders and community organizers who continue to build spaces of belonging, as well in each of us here today who carry their spirit forward. Let us never forget their sacrifices, their strength, and their love, and let us commit ourselves to ensuring their legacy is honored, not just in remembrance, but in action. Thank you.
As we reflect on the impact of Executive Order 9066, it is important to remember one woman who stood up against injustice.
We're going to tell you a little bit about a woman named Mitsuya Endo, who a lot of people have never heard of, but we want to tell you about her. It's a name that should be as well known as any in the story of Japanese American incarceration during World War II. She was born and raised in California. She was a quiet, often notated as an ordinary young woman, working as a typist for the state government until Executive Order 9066 changed everything. Like over 120,000 other Japanese Americans, she was forcibly removed from her home and was unjustly imprisoned. She was at Tule Lake and later Topaz despite being a loyal American citizen. But unlike most, she fought back in a way that would make history. Endo agreed with the civil rights attorneys to become the face of a landmark Supreme Court case that challenged the government's right to detain American citizens without trial. Her case as plaintiff and ex parte Endo, she challenged the constitutionality of the internment, which ultimately led to the ruling that Japanese Americans could not be held in internment camps if the government had no evidence they were disloyal. The Supreme Court ruled in her favor, leading to the closure of the camps. The court unanimously ruled that the U.S. government could not continue to detain a citizen who was conceitedly loyal to the United States. Though the ruling came late, after years of suffering and loss, it was a crucial legal victory in the fight for civil rights. Her quiet courage and refusal to accept injustice helped lay the foundation for future generations to challenge unconstitutional government actions. Today, as we reflect on the impact of Executive Order 9066, Mitsuya Endo's story reminds us that even in the darkest times, one person's stand for justice can make the difference. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maiya Kuida-Osumi.
And my name is Sarah Omura.
Thank you so much for having us. We'd like to share some creative nonfiction letters that I wrote as the voice of my great-grandmother, Hideko. I never got the chance to meet her, but these letters are written based on interviews that I conducted with my grandmother, Machi Kuida, about her mother's experiences raising 5 children during camp. And I think she might be watching the live stream right now, and so my family too, or they'll catch it later, but hello. I want to thank Sarah so much for helping read these letters and giving a voice to my great-grandfather, Masashi. And I want to thank the park rangers at the Manzanar National Historic Site who uncovered histories and documents about my family's history that really that really helped support the oral histories that my grandparents told me. So these are called Love, Hideko.
Los Angeles, California, November 6th, 1941.
Hi, Okasan. It's me, Hideko. I hope you're safe with the war going on in Japan right now. I really hope to visit you soon with the kids. Kumi, Taka, Sumi, Fumio, and little Machi. They're 3 to 10 years old now. Masashi and I are running the Tenriko Church in Los Angeles, and he was finally able to save up and buy that car he's been wanting to get to. So I hope to see you soon. Love, your daughter, Hideko.
Los Angeles, California, December 9th, 1941, 2 days after Pearl Harbor.
Dear Masashi, are you safe? Where did the FBI take you? Just tell them we're just a family that runs a church and that our children are American, our children are human. They had no right. Just watching those men ransack our home, rummaging through drawers and shelves, knocking over glass case dolls with their towering figures looming over and interrogating you. I can't shake the image. Next week is Sumi's 7th birthday and Taka's 8th birthday. Come home soon. Your wife, Hideko.
Santa Anita Temporary Detention Facility, California, May 13th, 1942.
Dear Masashi, on Friday, May 8th, they filed us onto buses with thousands of other Japanese and Japanese Americans and sent us to the Santa Anita racetrack. We were forced to abandon the house and sell or give away all our belongings. Gomenne, I had to sell your car for barely $1 to the neighbors. The first night, they shoved us into horse stables with nothing but a canvas bag stuffed with prickly hay for a mattress. While stuffing the hay into the bags, we uncovered a snake, and Taka's been scared to sleep ever since. We're treated like livestock, forced to sleep in the filthy stench of horse poop until the government builds a larger camp to lock us up. I'm especially worried about Sumi's health, and while we've been able to manage her chronic sickness so far, I'm concerned that in this environment, her condition is going to worsen. Love, Hideko.
Heart Mountain Concentration Camp, Wyoming, November 28th, 1942.
Dear Masashi, after about 4 months at Santa Anita, we were transferred to Heart Mountain on September 4th. Things are still rough, but we've been doing our best to gaman and persevere as best we can. The other day, I couldn't reach the light switch on the light post, so I asked the kids to grab me a broom to, flip the switch. And poor Machi raced inside the barrack and picked up the broom, but sideways, so she ran straight into the doorway and fell onto her oshiri. At 4 years old, she's not the most coordinated yet, but sure is cute. It was a small moment of joy behind barbed wire. But Sumi hasn't been doing so well lately. Her headaches are more frequent, and the camp's infirmary doesn't have an x-ray, so we really can't tell how bad her sickness is. She tries to help her siblings carry buckets of water in sometimes, but she has trouble balancing now and can barely walk. I pray every day and hope she gets better, and I'm sure she'll be okay. Sumi-chan's a strong girl. Love, Hideko.
Heart Mountain Concentration Camp, Wyoming, December 22nd, 1943.
Dear Masashi, we're spending another winter in Heart Mountain and still haven't heard back from you yet. The temperature dropped to negative 30 degrees, and Sumi's bedridden in the camp hospital. Every day, Kumi and Taka bring her lunch, and they play games together when she has the energy. Some days, she'll be laughing with her sisters. Other days, her voice so faint, like a whisper in the wind. Love, Hideko.
Santa Fe Prison, New Mexico, January 18th, 1944. Dear Hideko, I'm so sorry. This is Masashi. For the past 3 years, I've been jailed in Santa Fe with other men who were rounded up for being community leaders and ministers like me. Since the night the FBI arrested me, I've been locked up here. I miss you all, your smiles, laughs, and mere presence. With Sumi growing sicker every day, I hear they're moving us to a camp in Texas together. Please tell everyone I love them and tell Sumi-chan I'll see her soon. I promise. Love, your husband, Masashi. Crystal City Department of Justice Camp, Texas, January 27th, 1944.
Hi, Okasan. It's me again, Hideko. I know we don't say it often, but I love you and I miss you. Yesterday at January 26th at 3:20 p.m., Sumi-chan passed away at 9 years old of a cerebral hemorrhage. Just 2 days after we reunited with Masashi as one whole family, one final time. 2 days ago, the doctors at camp finally transferred Sumi to a real hospital and allowed Masashi and I to stay by her side in her final moments. And after 2 long years separated from her father, I like to think that Sumi waited to see him one final time before leaving this world. Despite all that we've endured in the past 2 years, I never thought I could experience such pain and sorrow again after losing my 6-month-old daughter, Yukiko, right before the war broke out. And yet, here I sit in this hospital room, writing this letter, having lost another daughter. And I just wonder if we hadn't been incarcerated by our own country, if we're maybe separated as a family or had better access to treatment, that maybe Sumi would still be here. But I know she's in a better place now. And I don't know how long we'll be in this barren desert of Crystal City. But frankly, it doesn't make much difference now. My daughter is dead and nothing matters. And yet everything matters. Kumi, Taka, Fumio, and Machi all depend on my support and guidance and strength. And we are still imprisoned behind barbed wire, fighting to survive. Love, Hideko. Thank you.
We're back. Okay, now we now want to take time to honor community leaders who passed away in the last year. We pay tribute to those who contributed uniquely to highlighting and preserving our community and its history. Gan Matsuda, a community leader, activist, and journalist, a lifelong Bruin who helped to found UCLA Nikkei Student Union, and a longtime member of the Manzanar Committee and its many programs.
Grace Watari Oga, beloved teacher at Lane Elementary School, an original member of Evergreen Baptist Church, a caring mother and wife, and a friend of Los Angeles DOR.
Akira Hirose, a renowned chef. He was a chef and owner of a Zei restaurant here in Little Tokyo, a beloved community member, father and husband, and a dear friend of LA DOR.
Kurt Kuniyoshi, an actor, dancer, and singer. He worked with both East-West Players and Grateful Crane Ensemble. He appeared on the TV series Hit and the film Only the Brave.
Mei Hinoki Mineta, a beloved mother and grandmother. She was a longtime volunteer in her local community and worked with her church to provide for those in need.
Norihiko Takatani, the longtime proprietor of Onsen Hardware here in Little Tokyo. He was a beloved community member, husband, and father.
Hisako Terasaki, a Nisei artist who specialized in printmaking, Alongside her husband, Dr. Paul Terasaki, they supported countless projects across Los Angeles and in Little Tokyo, including JANM.
Dr. Keith Terasaki, radiologist and assistant chief of the Diagnostic Imaging Department at Kaiser Permanente. The son of Paul and Hisako Terasaki, he continued their philanthropic work supporting Little Tokyo and other communities.
Grant Ujifusa. He served as co-editor of the Almanac of American Politics. As part of JACL's redress team, he helped campaign for redress in the 1970s and 80s.
Jeannie Wakatsuki Houston, co-author of the acclaimed memoir, Farewell to Manzanar. Her work helped to share the story of the incarceration experience with new generations.
Mario Gershom Reyes, a photographer with the Rafu Shimpo here in Little Tokyo for 40 years. His photos helped capture the heart of the community and made him a beloved member of this community. He just passed recently.
Carl Nobuyuki, a beloved community member who served as the former JACL National Executive Director. He was the founding member of ADAP, an active member of the San Fernando Valley Japanese Community Center, and a longtime employee of LA County.
Harry Kawahara, a longtime educator, activist, and counselor. He helped testify and find people to testify at the LA Commission hearings. He was also a longtime JACL member and president of the Greater Pasadena JACL. Thank you to all those named today and those who we did not, who fought for our community tirelessly and bravely throughout their lives.
We extend a special thank you to the Rafu Shimpo for the documentation and preservation of these individuals that assisted with our tribute today. We will now have DOR committee member Jan Tokumaru give some final closing thoughts and a call to action.
We have watched clips today from oral histories and the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians, CWRIC, from 1981. The CWRIC was the federal body that investigated the World War II incarceration in order to learn about how the horrific event happened. The CWRIC concluded that the incarceration was due to race prejudice, war hysteria, and the failure of political leadership. On this day of remembrance, we must clearly keep these reasons in mind as we think about what's happening in the US today. In 1942, politics of fear hit everyone. The Roosevelt administration planted the fear that Japanese Americans posed a threat to national security. That was a big lie, but it opened the floodgates of fear and suspicion toward our community and made it easy to violate our constitutional and human rights. Japanese Americans were rightfully panicked as the federal government invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to round up Issei leaders, and later used the Executive Order 9066 to exclude and incarcerate all other Nikkei from the West Coast. Nikkei were crushed by the government and were desperate to keep their loved ones and communities safe. Some leaders in the community said that Japanese Americans should quietly cooperate with the government's actions and collaborate with these efforts. Others called for dissent and resistance to those actions. Nikkei were pitted against one another in the concentration camps. The fear and anxiety among Nikkei were so great that those who dissented were largely demonized and ostracized during the camp and for many decades after World War II. It took 40 years after the camps for Japanese Americans to regain their voice and strength to push for redress and reparations. And we won a measure of justice by standing up, giving testimony, serving the community, and working in solidarity with grassroots and different organizations. We did not do it alone, though, but we worked with the support of other communities as well.
Uniting with allies was key to the success of the redress movement. In 1988, on behalf of the nation, the president apologized, and Nikkei were accorded reparations and were finally able to begin the healing process. Those who had courageously dissented during World War II, yet were cruelly mistreated and blamed by some Nikkei, have slowly been allowed to come from the shadows and take their rightful place as role models for strength. Our own history teaches us that we are rooted in resistance, seeking justice and equality. As we look at our government today, we must remember how fear and racism can be so dangerous and overwhelming. There is a growing politics of fear where immigrants are demonized and scapegoated. The Alien Enemies Act, used to round up and imprison Issei during World War II, is again being raised, now threatening all immigrants. In the spirit of advocating for democracy, we must call on ourselves to stand up for immigrants, transgender people, and other marginalized groups. We believe in the dignity of all people, regardless of status, ability, or gender identity. We uphold human rights and constitutional protections, including birthright citizenship. There are also the deeply chilling effects of fear, where even allies of the current administration do not dare express criticism or disagreements for fear of displeasing the administration and being punished. Such fears can grow quickly, and the First Amendment rights to free speech becomes muted and shut down, and our fight to keep our democracy can become repressed. So let us recommit on this day of remembrance that we must come together, speak out, and fight for justice and democracy for all. We can and need to be allies. Let us be united and not allow the powers that be to divide and conquer us. As we build greater and greater numbers, we will overcome fear and let humanity and compassion prevail. It will take all of us to take care of our community and protect others who are under attack. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the closing of the camps. We can learn from our experience that from the powerful legacy of the courage from many women who have impacted the broader community over generations, navigating incredible challenges, as we've heard, and holding together extended families and communities. Today, we're very grateful for the intergenerational speakers that we've had. These dynamic leaders have helped us all see more of our history through their personal reflections related to their own lived experience. It is our honor to learn from their shared truth and promise of a compassionate and powerful way forward together in action. Thank you. And on behalf of the Day of Remembrance Committee for Los Angeles, we really thank all of you for being here. And as we close this program, we'd like to say again a special thanks to Nishi Hongwanji for this space, this community space that has been so significant in our history here in Los Angeles. And to our community sponsors, we thank you for the support. Our community sponsors whose tables are along the wall here would welcome everyone to please visit before you leave today and find out more about what they're involved with. And another reminder, the Manzanar Pilgrimage is coming up. The annual pilgrimage is coming up in April. Please visit the table for the Manzanar Committee and get more information for how you can participate. And with that, we will close our program for today, but welcome you to stay and visit. Please help yourself to refreshments that will be served at the back of the room today. And once again, thank you very much.